Is this thing on?
Are you ready, Matt?
You're listening to Box Office Bingers with Matt Diaz and Ernesto Santos.
Good evening, folks. We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you.
We know each other. He's a friend from work.
Box Office Bingers.
And the only way that I know how to do it is to find you a bloody good double.
He's my friend. I don't have friends. I got family.
I can do this all day.
You know, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.
So let's get started with our spoiler review of Nomadland. Like Ernesto said, directed by Chloe Zhao, written by Chloe Zhao, starring Frances McDormand. So, Sheldon, you are our guest. What were your thoughts on Nomadland?
So, I was really impressed with Frances McDormand the whole way through, and I'm watching this movie, and it just felt so intimate. Like, I felt like I was out there in South Dakota, in Nevada, with a lot of the nomads who were traveling around. And I knew that Frances McDormand was going to give a compelling performance, but she blew me out of the water with this one because she was so believable. She kind of took us to this place of being out on the road, and there were times when I'm watching this movie and I just wanted to like shake her at times because at first I thought, I was like, okay, is she homeless? You know, what's happening here? Because after her husband dies, you know, she lost her job in this town that they were living in that employed so many people, forced her to kind of leave the life that she used to know. And throughout the movie, people are trying to help her out, and she's, you know, turning down all of these offers for people to, you know, let her stay with them or help her out in any capacity. But after a while, her conviction became super admirable because she was determined. She's like, I don't want to live that way, and I want to live this more simple life on the road, and this is what I'm going to do. So I was struck by her performance. I thought she was great. A lot of it felt very believable. And Matt, you and I talked about this, about not reading reviews before you watch a movie. So I went into this movie completely blank slate, had no idea what to expect. I didn't even know what it was about. Like, from the title I could kind of guess, but I had no idea what to expect. So after watching the movie, letting it sink in for a few days, and then now reading some of the articles that have come out since I've watched it, I appreciate everything about this movie, like more so than I did when I watched it. Again, that intimacy that I was talking about that I felt in this movie, the acting that I thought was acting wasn't acting. A lot of the people who were cast in the movie were not professional actors. These are nomads who were on the trail that the director convinced to be part of this movie. And I was just reading something in the LA Times. The director kind of took this hands-off approach with the movie so that the actors would be their authentic selves. So I thought that was just remarkable and great that you've got these people who are just having this dialogue with Frances McDormand, who is an Oscar-winning actress, and they steal the scenes just as much as she does.
Yeah. Ernesto, what about you?
Wow, it's like, Sheldon, I'm going to tell you, it's like you stole the words right out of my mouth. Well, first and foremost, I felt like the first thing I felt yeah, you're following her, but it felt like we were just like watching a window into her world, like the whole time. Like it was very believable. Well, what's interesting is that the YouTube star that they were talking about in the movie, like that's really that's really him. Wells, I think is his last name. He's one of the ones, you know, and you think about him at the end when he's talking about his son committing suicide, like that's from somebody who's not an actor. Like that's a true raw emotion that they managed to capture on film. So like this movie has a lot of positives. I was surprised because I really didn't think I was gonna like it because it was kind of slow in the beginning, which I was okay with because you know it's kind of sets up the scene for what's supposed to happen. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I thought it was interesting, you know, just seeing them collectively come around, almost like a little tribe. Like they kind of, you know, very secluded community, and you got the one lady talking about the different bucket sizes that she needs to poop in. It's like, well, for those of you who've got bad knees, we've got the 7-gallon buckets.
So Ernesto, to piggyback off of that particular part, I just read something that scene with Frances McDormand was actual. She had like a stomach reaction from something she ate on set. when they were
Oh,
filming.
wow.
So I
Oh,
won't give
wow.
it away too much, but that scene that I'm sure it just felt too real, and yeah, she had a moment. So
Wait, oh, but it just and Sheldon, this is a full spoiler review. Like this review is full, so you can whatever you want to talk
okay,
about,
so
we
yes,
can talk about.
that scene where her stomach's rumbling and she's in that RV and she gets on the bucket that you're talking about. Yeah,
That actually happened.
Wow. We saw a live in person shit on. That's that takes a different level of acting right there to do that. To put that
I
on
mean,
screen.
there was a BuzzFeed article that I read about that, so take that with I'll send it to you guys. But yeah,
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was fantastic. I was kind of Ernesto said it was a little bit slow, but I would disagree. I thought I was pretty gripped from the very beginning. I thought it was also very cool. Like she was on the road, and then all of a sudden she's in an Amazon warehouse, and I was like, ooh. I didn't like. I was just shocked by it just to see an Amazon warehouse, and like it looked so real. And I looked it up, and they got permits to actually film inside a real Amazon warehouse. And so I thought that was really cool to just add that level of authenticity. And really, I mean, the whole movie is grounded by a sense of realism. The choice to hire real life nomads to be in these roles, and this is part of a book, like we mentioned, and so she's taking cues from this book. But what's interesting is that the characters in the book were based off of real people. So the director Chloe Zhao reached out to those people that were mentioned in the book to be in the movie. So those people that were in the book are also telling their real life stories in the film, and so when they have their moment to tell their real life story, it's heartbreaking. That moment for me, like I mean, there was many moments where it kicked off, but one I think earlier on in the film when she was like, I think it was Linda May telling her story of how she wanted to commit suicide, and before that she was like going into retirement. She looked at her social security check, and they said, I've been working for years and all they can give me is $550. It's insane to think about that. Your life's work is bundled down to this is how much we can give you, and like you can't make a living off of that. And so it's almost you have a more understanding of why people decide to live this life, and I think that's like really where the core of this movie is, of just more understanding of a way of living that normally would not be, I guess, viewed in a way. There were also some other moments in there where the movie was about unity. You have these group of people who are all dealing with the same thing, particularly older people all going through the same thing, and they're kind of banding together, either by giving them stuff or kind of like, here we have a job. Also, the job aspect of it. You probably have a job for every couple of months because it looks like it's seasonal.
Yeah, you work little odd jobs here and there. Like they had little those RV campsites they would work at, and then hoping. And then they seem like the Amazon is like the gold mine. It's like, oh, if you get the Amazon gig, then you're set.
yeah.
Yeah, but only for a couple of months though.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was also interesting because at first when the movie started out, I thought it was just going to focus maybe be this social commentary on homelessness in this country. And, after you start to realize that, no, these are people who are intentionally choosing to live this way, and this is part of their life. It made me feel something, and I learned something new. And if art can do that, it's achieved something. But no, I appreciate it so much more now that I've had time to digest it, because going through it at first I was like, oh, this is going to be really sad, and then as it went on I was like, oh, this is great. They are doing their own thing, they're marching to the beat of their own drum, and I can't help but draw and think about how does this relate to things that are happening now, and how different is what these folks are doing compared to Gen Z and millennials who are doing van life during the pandemic right now. I mean, obviously you have people who are choosing to live simply and live out of a vehicle and travel around the country, but the way that this van life has kind of been presented during the pandemic and in the years leading up to the pandemic, you've got these attractive, young, well-dressed, city slickers who are leaving like bigger cities to go kind of have this life and this experience, which there's merit in that, and it sounds like it would be worthwhile on some level. But this provided that same kind of mentality, but with people of a different background and a different education set and different jobs.
Yeah, like people, either right at retirement or they're right around that target age. You're either about to retire or you've just retired.
Well, that scene when... Oh,
go ahead.
Matt. Oh, no, that scene...
Yeah, we're doing this again.
Sheldon, go ahead.
Yeah, Sheldon, you...
No, but because you're watching this movie and you kind of start to... you think that you're starting to form preconceived notions about these people. And that scene where Frances McDormand is... I think it's a Walmart, the way it looks, or some type of store. She's at the store and she sees that family.
Toward the beginning, right?
Yeah. And you gather that like she was an educator at some time in her career, whether she was a substitute teacher or a full-time teacher, but she had that connection with the kids. So like it's something that she had a different background. She had more to offer than I think a lot of people would assume about a lot of the other people who are living in that world and that story.
No, I was saying like when you look at them, you just feel like, I guess I felt like jealous of them almost a little bit, just because like man, these people are living on the land, like it's just them and the world, like you're on the total opposite side of the coin, like completely disconnected from all the craziness, any harm doing, like it's just you and the road and your small tribe, like, and nothing else matters.
Well, I think what the movie did a great job about is kind of showing the wonder of living on the road, but also the hardships of it. Obviously, we're hearing these people's stories, either kind of forced into this life or wanting to live in this life through multiple different reasons. I think a perfect example of that was the campfire toward the beginning, where they're all kind of telling their stories. And there was like this one person where he was in like one of their friends was about to go retirement. He had a boat sitting in his garage for years, and right when he was about to retire, he got sick and passed away, and he never took that boat onto the water. And so that was like a realization for her to be like, I don't want my sailboat, in my garage. I want to go out there. Another person who wanted to do this with her family, and then both of her parents got cancer. Now she's doing this on her own. A lot of sad stories are put, a lot of sad real stories are put into this. And Sheldon, to your point, you were talking about van life and how it's almost more because this movie this was taking place during the recession of 2011, 2012, and now we're in almost 10 years later from that, and now it looks like it's popular nowadays for the new age to go out in a van and just kind of live life on the road. But we're getting this story under a different perspective of a different generation of where they're choosing to live this lifestyle, and it's not as glamorous as you may see now today in YouTube videos. And also with the pandemic, the recession in 2012, the pandemic now, there's a lot of similarities of you seeing a lot of people deciding to take this life, and it's almost admirable for them. It's like, I don't think I'll be brave enough to just live out of a van for for years. I don't, I like kind of living with a roof over my head, but for some people that's good enough. All I need is that van, and you can trick it out however you want to. You see Frances McDormand, she found like a piece of wood. She's like, oh, this would be great to screw on the side of my door for a shelf when I want to eat outside. Like it's a weird notion to think about.
But they even showcase that in that one part where her van breaks down and she wakes that lady up, and then she gets mad at her. She's like, "Don't you see the sign? This means don't disturb me."
I love that scene so much.
That was a great scene.
I forget that actress's or the non-actress, but she just
Swanky
kept it 100.
is her name.
Yeah, she kept it 100. She's just like,
whole
it's
time.
inside, like,
please don't wake me up.
I thought she had a person in there. I thought they were doing something in that van.
So did I.
And I thought that was like it's kind of like a sock on the door type of deal. When you see the pirate sign, that's you don't go in there. But just sleeping, it's all right.
Yeah,
I got you.
But then she takes her to go get her car fixed, and then she has that conversation with the mechanic. He's like, "Listen, at this point, you're better off just getting rid of this one and just getting,
Right.
using that money to buy a new one. And then she goes in to her explanation like, well, you don't understand, like, everything I've set up inside, and I set it up just the way I like it. Like, it has to be this, man. Like, this is my house. You're asking me to, like, throw my house away.
Yeah.
I think that there is something definitely just inherently inspirational and aspirational about living simply, and I think that's what speaks to the younger van life culture that we're seeing on social media, and then also what's appealing to this older generation that was almost forced into making those decisions. A lot of them, got laid off of jobs in their 50s and 60s where they still had some working years left in them and weren't able to finish out a job that they had set out to do for whatever reason, or if life got in the way. But there's something just kind of aspirational about, okay, like, let me focus on what's really important to me, and I'm going to hone in on that and live my life according to that simplicity. So you might be watching this and you're like, oh, like, I've got to have this and I've got to have that, and you realize we don't need that much. Like, if we have our health and we're alive, like, that's all that matters in this life.
Yeah, and also, this is another movie about just kind of living with the land, living with nature. You have this, Swanky was telling the story of how she was, like, kind of on a boat, and she was seeing, like, these birds or bats hatch, and so it was like their hatching season, so there was, like, eggs on the ground, like eggshells on the ground, and you see a whole bunch of either birds or bats flying in the sky, and then the reflection of that is from the water, and it feels like she was surrounded by that, and for her, she was at peace. You're not going to get that living in the city, It's a different lifestyle, and I appreciate that they, the film and the director decided to go in that direction of the story, but the movie's also very sad. This isn't a fancy portrayal of this life, and not a glamorized portrayal of this life. And I think it's really put together as, like, Frances McDormand is kind of like our view into this world, the person who is not in this world per se, and then she's surrounded by people who are with her actors, and so she's kind of like our window into this world, and I think she did a fantastic job kind of expressing that sadness, as well as she was inherently always in a good mood. She was never really upset about much of anything, and she was kind of enjoying the people that she surrounded herself with, and it's something to be said about that, and that performance to really, like, it's almost like, I'm sad, but everything is going to be okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the film does a really good job at, like, honing in on defining exactly what home is, and
Yes.
what home is to you could be something different to somebody else. Like Frances McDormand, like, home is not where you live. Like, to her, home was her husband and his love for Empire, and that's that kind of explaining, like, why she left right after he died, and then like, once towards the end, like, the ending's kind of strange because once she like comes to peace with his death, then she comes back.
She goes back to Empire, and then she's kind of like, all right, life back on the road again.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Like,
but it was almost as if, like, a full circle closure moment, going back and walking through the empty house and seeing this abandoned town,
and I don't even think it was that long. I would say it was maybe within 2 years or so that all that kind of happened. So, like, I thought it was kind of strange that she's visiting this abandoned town, but then, like, in that house, like, there's still, like, coat hangers and, like, a nice fan ceiling, or a ceiling fans up there. So it's like just pick up and go and not even demolish the area. It's just abandoned. So there's some sadness there as well, but also, like you said, I think she came to some sort of peace with herself. And was able to move on. And then another strong point about this kind of lifestyle that she's living was in when she went to go visit her sister. I believe it was her sister.
Yeah.
And she was like, all of her relatives were like, you got to come back. You can stay here. And it's hard for other people to understand her situation. And back in 2012, yeah, absolutely. I'm sure it wasn't common for people to be living on the road like that.
Well, and the sister also said, though, that it was this very tender moment between adult siblings. And she said, when Frances McDormand's character Fern said, this is a choice. This is what I want to do. I'm paraphrasing that conversation. And then the sister kind of acknowledged, I've always admired that about you. You've always done what you wanted to do. You've always kind of done what's important to you. So she's kind of always been, marching to the beat of her own drum throughout this. I read this at a couple different sources, but apparently when Frances McDormand was, I don't know how old she was, but she said when she turned 65, she was going to change her name to Fern, and she was going to travel the country in a van. And that's the character that she's playing in this movie. Like,
wow.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I think the director has some strong ties to, this style of living as well. I'm not sure. I think I remember reading an article saying that the director, this was taking cues of something she actually did or something that she always wanted to do. So, yeah, it sounds like with Chloe and Frances McDormand, there was a lot of, a purpose and reason to tell this story and to adapt this book into a movie. And it really just does show how, it's probably why we're all connected with it so much, even though we've never lived this lifestyle. It's a human story, and so we can all connect with that.
Definitely.
Yeah. But anyway, any final words, Sheldon? Obviously, do you recommend people to watch this movie?
Yeah, I think that no matter what your experience is, there is going to be something about this movie that resonates with you. And even if you're not living that life or it's not something that you've ever thought about, there are things about these characters, their stories, their grit, their resilience, and just there's so many tender, intimate moments throughout this whole movie that just kind of bring you in. And Matt, like you said, at the end of the day, it is a great human story. It's about human connection, and it just draws you in, and you feel like you know these characters.
Yeah, absolutely. Ernesto, final thoughts?
I feel the same, because I feel stronger about the movie now that we've kind of talked it out. I feel like now that we've revisited some of the main points that happened in the movie, it sits with me more now than it did when I initially watched it. And but you hit a good point, obviously, Matt, with it being a human story. And I think where it hit for me there was when they're in that RV. They're both working in that RV park, and then they have they do their day, and then it's they're all leading up to they get in their nightgowns, and then they just do like a face mask, and they're just kind of talking shit and having a good time. And I just felt like that was a very nothing if you take a step back, nothing really happened in that moment, but I felt like that was a key moment. That was one of those key moments, just showing the good that life can bring and how something so simple can bring such a deep human connection with another human being.
And not only that, they had so much joy from that scene.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just I'm just gonna sit down on this lawn chair and just have this napkin over my face and feel like I'm having a spa without actually.
I was I don't even like having a spa day, but I want to do that. I want to sit and do nothing, stuff on my face.
To piggyback off of what you guys are talking about with the natural and fun indulgences that they were doing with what was around them, I thought that there was a sequence of shots of Frances McDormand just swimming and floating in that.
Yes.
If it was a brook, a creek, whatever it was, but she's just there and she's just so at peace with all this water kind of rushing beside her. And it was all hers. She didn't have to share it with anybody. She didn't have to get in line to check in anywhere to experience a natural park. She just went right in and was just floating in the water.
Didn't ask questions, just said, you know what? I'm going to get naked and get in the water.
That's exactly what she did, too. But just living that lifestyle, you can, that looks like a nice creek. Time to strip and enjoy myself. That's basically what she did. And not everyone can do that. I also, on a side note, Ernesto, did you catch the Avengers marquee in the film?
I did not.
There was a scene where Frances McDormand is... she's walking by a movie theater, and the movie theater was playing The Avengers. And so she, the character's walking, she looked at the poster, and then she continued walking. That was a nod to Chloe Zhao's next movie, which is The Eternals, which is...
look at her dropping Marvel Easter eggs in her movie.
I love that.
That is awesome. I did not know. I didn't know that she was in charge of the Eternals. That's that's really. I've actually just going off track here real quick. The Eternals. That's a great storyline. that I'm really excited for, because I've read a few of the comics. Like, and seeing Nomadland, I'm curious with her style and like the way, especially reading specifically about the way she directs. I'm curious to see what she's going to bring to that project.
Well, it makes you even more hyped, Ernesto. Kevin Feige came out in an interview somewhat recently because Nomadland just came out in theaters, and he was like that Chloe Zhao had the best pitch for a Marvel film he's ever seen. So like she was hired off the basis of what she pitched to him of what she wanted the Eternals to be. So so if that doesn't get you excited for the Eternals, then I don't know what will. But either way, I wasn't too excited for that one because I knew very little about it. But with Chloe Zhao, and after seeing this film and like, you know, being the big Marvel fans that we are, it now holds a little bit more weight to it. I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm excited for this. But yeah, you know, to wrap up, you know, our review, it's such a human story. It's such a raw, emotional story. And I think one can connect, at least you can connect with at least one aspect of it, whether you're, you know, traveling from job to job, going on a road trip even, you know, dealing with family issues, you know, you can even, as simple as my family doesn't agree with what I do. That is, you know, essentially what's in there. And, you know, and also anybody who's in a financial rut, you know, it's this film has a lot for everybody, and it's a little slow, you know, and to some people it might not
pace.
The pace.
But I feel like they do a good job of still telling a good story within a slow pace, which is actually really hard to do.
Yeah, I agree.
It's really, because then it's really easy for you to get bored. But that's what it was slow, but I also wasn't bored throughout the entire way.
Agreed.
But it matches their lifestyle, because nomads live that very slow paced life, you know?
Yeah.
I think that
just the storytelling and the acting and the characters, that's what really drove a lot of those slower moments, because a lot of those scenes had time to breathe.
They needed that. They needed that time to breathe in order for you to really capture the essence of what they were trying to get across.
Absolutely.
So, all in all, I recommend.
Yeah, I agree.
Recommendation for me as well.
That's it. You have 1, 2, 3 recommendations to go watch.
That's
this
a 3 thumbs up.
That's a 3 thumbs up right there. Well, technically speaking, that's 6 thumbs up if we all put them together.
Yeah.
Well, what if you only put up 1? Well, you don't have to put up 2.
Well, then we're thinking about other numbers here, Ernesto, because then it could be like 1, 2, or 3, or 2, and then 1, and then 2, then we're at 4. So anyway, we don't have to go into the logistics of that. But
this has gone on way too long.
Yes, it has. If anybody who hasn't seen it but want to see it, Nomadland is available on Hulu. Hey, thanks for listening to this edited version of our weekly podcast, Box Office Bingers. If you want to hear the full version of all of our episodes, which includes us discussing entertainment news, movie and TV reviews, guest interviews, and other things we've been watching, you can find us on wherever you listen to podcasts.
And if you want more from us, be sure to hit that subscribe button and find us on our social media channels on Instagram at boxoffice_bingers, Facebook at boxofficebingers, email at boxofficebingers@gmail.com, and Matt, we're even on the TikTokies. We're on the TikTokies at Box Office Bingers. Once again, thanks for listening.